start with that ultimate clear vision of where you want to go. But also while you're doing that, identify where you are right now. People are already an expert in a certain area. And why go through years and years and years of trying to learn it for yourself when there's somebody that has already done it and you can model the process? When you get into the business side of it, you're going to do the business compass. You're going to look and identify where the gaps are, where are the gaps in the system, the people, the operations, the acceleration, and where can you make those better?
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders that watching and listening today? Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have a powerful guest. His name is Patrick O'Donnell, and he is a growth and performance strategist, best-selling author, and speaker. And as the founder of Ignite 5, he equips leaders to scale smarter, perform at their best, and multiply their impact through proven systems accelerated by AI. And with over 20 years' experience building growth and performance systems, Patrick helped implement the system that scaled a firm from 37 million to 400 million in revenue in 5 years and guided organizations to an average of 300% growth in 3 years after implementing the system. And his performance protocols have reduced biological age by an average of 7.5 years. And he personally ranks in the top 0.1% globally for slowest pace of aging. And he's been a speaker at events alongside John Maxwell, Demi-Leigh and Tim Tebow, Gary Brecka, Amanda Holmes, and Mark Sisson. And after a year to travel the world with his wife and 2 sons, they now live in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Welcome, Patrick, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Really wonderful to be here, Ethan. And I love your show. And yeah, we look forward to diving into the conversation.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So it's going to be a very impactful episode for everyone watching and listening today. You are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people that don't know who you are, just please introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Sure. And thank you for that intro too, because you certainly covered quite a lot of it. But yeah, the basics is that is essentially what it is. We say equipping leaders to grow their business while performing at their best. So I guess to give you the backstory, show how old I am when I got into this whole growth and performance, it was after graduating from Georgia Tech back in 1999. It's when the whole kind of dot-com boom was starting. And while I didn't get into that side of things, we bought an internet franchise and was essentially helping successful businesses get set up online. And so grew that business to be the #1 franchise in the US before we sold it. But I stayed in growth marketing and performance systems and worked as VP of marketing for companies. And so it was a good ride, but things aren't always perfect. As the real estate crash happened back in 2008, I was working in the real estate industry and that essentially dried up. So I left my position there, but really went back to helping leaders and companies grow. And that's when I ran a marketing agency again, automated it after time, and then had the opportunity where my wife and I fulfilled one of our dreams, as you mentioned, to travel the world for a year with our 2 sons, had an awesome time in Australia and many other places around the world. And then it was after that when I came back and really wanted to have, okay, how do I have an impact? And that's when I joined that impact-driven real estate firm where we had that amazing growth at 37 million to 400 million in 5 years. And that's what we're doing now. It's basically everything at Ignite 5 is built on that system where we're helping founders, executives, entrepreneurs, but it's now accelerated by AI. So really, they can grow smarter, perform better, and multiply impact. It's all about.
Yeah, awesome. What a story. I love that. And yeah, using your skills that you've had, maximize that. And I think the greatest thing that I think about business is freedom, right? And for you guys to be able to go on a year around the world is, something that not many people could say that they've done or can do. And coming to Australia as well, being biased, that's awesome as well, because not a lot of Americans want to fly that far. So awesome that you got to experience it, Sydney and Melbourne and some of the cities around here. But I'd love to know, because a lot of people think, oh, it's not possible. I've got to do all these other things in my business, right, to be able to do that. So do you want to maybe share, what helped you, maybe even from a mindset perspective here, right, of going, well, how are we going to make this happen, right, to be able to, plan for this? And what do we need to do beforehand to be able to enjoy this year off?
Exactly. I think it does, like you said, the magic words there. It starts with that planning. So many people want to be able to do things, but then how do you actually make it happen? Have that will to do it? And let's go way back again to our college years. I met my wife on a study abroad. We were studying together at Georgia Tech. We hadn't met each other there, but we met over in Europe on the study abroad. Our whole relationship at the start was based on adventure travel. Well, when we had our boys, that kind of stopped, right? But we always had this spirit and wanted to be able to keep doing it. And so we said, well, before our oldest gets to middle school, we're going to have to make it happen. And that date was getting closer and closer. And it's like, well, if we're ever going to do it, now's the time. So it was kind of, people always give the analogy like, oh, when are you going to have a child? When are you going to start a business? You're never going to be ready. So just make the date and make it happen. And so that's really where it started by having that date. And then it became, you could say, a pretty well thought out plan to be able to pull this off. But it was like, all right, the boys are in private school. How do we educate them properly? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? But it became that process of being able to look and see how it could be done. And I will say it's probably even easier now in the age of AI because back then AI did not exist. But I won't say it was a year-long vacation either. It was the idea of how do I set the systems in place to allow me to still run my business, just not only me. Obviously, we had a team, we had the systems, we had things in place to be able to do it, but I'd still check in. There were those nights when we were at a fun place and they'd all go to bed, and then I'd get on my laptop, make sure all was going well. But it does become that process of have a date, have a plan, and then have the execution. It's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And that's what I like to tell people here is a lot of life is a blend. A lot of people think it's a balance, but you've got to be able to blend things together. So I was, just got back from the World Cup, right, in the US and Canada, and I didn't just shut off completely, right? I was making sure I was doing what I needed to do to keep the momentum moving in the businesses. Obviously, I wasn't, working 8 hours a day or anything like that, but I put things in place to enjoy myself, but also do things. So I think the question I always ask myself is, how do I do both? I think that's a very
Mm,
powerful question because some people think it's one or the other, but there's always an
right.
answer to do both in what you do. Yeah.
Right. Rather than that either or, it's the both and. I want to do both, live fully, make it happen. Right. And that's really what it's all about. And I think when we went on that trip, we I already had a system. I mean, there's business systems that are great and you can put them in place, how you can really make your business thrive without it all being on you. I've recently been reading the book Dan Sullivan's Who Not How. And it is so much more about the who's and the systems rather than you trying to figure out how to do everything. And I think that is so powerful. And then I used it then, but then we got back and I joined that real estate firm that I was talking about. The CEO there had really created his own system. He took the basis of, you've likely heard of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. But he found that there were things that were limiting in those. So he put his whole system around it. And it's called the Extraordinary Execution System. And that really takes the base level of business operations, but puts that layer on top of it related to personal performance as well. So while the team members are working hard, they're growing a business, it's so that you can live fully in all aspects of life as well.
Yeah, I love that personal element because I think it's so true. I talk about my clients that your business affects your personal life affects your business, and what obviously your team is part of that there. So it's important to have everything right. Otherwise, yeah, you can something's going to break or you're going to get burnt out or whatever it is, right? Health's affected, which we don't want. We want to be able to have a holistic success in everything that we do. Let's talk about this system, right? Because um obviously you had big growth, right? Here, you're talking about 37 million to 400 million, right? In 5 years, that's an amazing feat, right? Obviously you already had traction, which was good, great, but you're talking almost 10 times the amount, right? That you've grown over 5 years, which is massive. Do you want to talk a little bit behind that? What was the system? What had to happen to be able to get you to that point?
Sure. Well, I still will say that the CEO, Don at DOP Capital, is incredible in setting all of this up. He is the one that had that. And I mean, to have the foundation, so I can't take credit for for doing it, but is living that system. And yeah, that was my role to come in and implement it and teach the team members and the operators about it. But I will say in general, kind of you strip away all of the well, I guess people talk about their fluff, their systems, all this kind of stuff. What's the real core of it? And if you look at kind of the way it goes, like start with that ultimate clear vision. of where you want to go. But also while you're doing that, identify where you are right now. Like be brutally honest, confront, like Jim Collins says, confront the brutal facts about where you really are and what's going on. And if you're not there, well, how are you going to get there? And then you look at the ways it does all work together. Well, you look at the whole strategy. Strategy is one piece, then there's operations, then there's people, and then there's what we call the acceleration. Acceleration is kind of a blend of sales and marketing. And so when all of those are plugging together, it's the way to be able to, we like to say, help people accomplish more in 90 days than most do in a year because you have that long-term vision. And then you just back it up. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's like, okay, if I have that vision of where I want to be in 7 years, what do I want to do this year? So therefore, what do I have to do in the next 90 days? So therefore, what do I have to do this week? And then it becomes every single day. And you have those simple daily metrics or key numbers or whatever you want to call them. But when you have every person in that organization that absolutely owns what they are doing and why they are doing it to tie into the vision, it's amazing. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's the old idea of the boat rowing. Everybody's rowing in the same direction. You're just going to go faster and faster, and that flywheel is going to start spinning faster and faster, and things are gonna work. So that's kind of a simplified version of what it's all about. But
Yeah. No, I
that's how
love
it
that.
goes.
It's I think the key thing there was obviously having the great people leading the CEO, the why, the vision, right? Everyone's
Hmm.
built into that vision, and then having, like you said, breaking it down to the lowest common denominator on the strategic focus of what you want to do in a shorter period of time, using Parkinson's law basically to your advantage
Yeah,
of going, how much time you give yourself is how long it takes there. So may as well, do it in a shorter amount of time, which is awesome, and create the success from there, and and build it up. So and I think it's amazing on doing it for a sustained period, right? Over that amount of time. So let's get into this 5-step Ignite 5 framework, because I'm sure
yeah.
everyone's probably going, what is this thing? I want to know all about it. So please, share us more about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I love the framework. And that's really where the system went to be able to combine the business growth with the personal peak performance. So I'll give you the five first, and then we'll go into what each one of them is. Very simply, identify, implement, ignite, integrate, and impact. So that's essentially what it's all about. But I sort of alluded to number one already. The first step is identifying where you are right now. Be brutally honest. And this is really in all aspects of life. Yes, the business, but where we talk about it in a performance and growth diagnostic, we look at what we call the personal compass. And you're going to see like the personal compass is made of, you think of a compass that's around there and you've got the 8 points of the compass, and we call them the 8 F's. So it's faith, family, friends, finances, fitness, fulfillment, freedom, and fun. And so like this might sound crazy, like you're growing a business by starting here, but this is just part of that personal aspect of being able to see where are you, where are the individuals, and where could they be stronger. Now, obviously, when you get into the business side of it, you're going to do the business compass. You're going to look and identify where the gaps are, where are the gaps in the system, the people, the operations, the acceleration, and where can you make those better. So that is really where it starts. That is step one, the identification.
Yeah,
Good so
awesome,
far?
man. Yeah, that's awesome. I love
Keep,
I love
keep,
the identify part, and that's what you need to know. You need to know where you're at, right? That's the key thing, because
Mhm.
if you don't know where to get to where you want to go, you need to know where you're at first. And I love the brutal honesty. It's not about sugarcoating. It's about just knowing where it is and then going, how do we get to where we want to be? So that's awesome. And keep going with the
Cool.
next one.
So the second, once you've identified what the issues are, then it's time to implement that system. And really, for folks, I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs on here, and so a lot of this is about growth and business growth, but it's also about personal growth. And we look at if you are off in any of those areas, like let's take fitness, for example, there are subsets of each of these that people could dive into and say, okay, how do I improve my life? So on the personal side, you look at the 5 areas there. Is it your mindset? Are you in the right mindset? Is your sleep good? How's your nutrition, your exercise, the right supplements? Those are the five to be able to get people transformed there. And I got to say, there have been some magical transformations. I mean, not just at the company I mentioned, but now working with other companies, other executives. There was literally a senior level executive who came to us after he got off of TRT because he didn't like how it made him feel. His wife didn't like how it made him feel. He was literally going out to his car at leaving the office to take a nap in his car because he was so tired during the days. He came to us and said, please help, and literally transformed his life to have more energy. His testosterone went up naturally. I'm not promoting any of this. We did this all naturally through the positive just nutrition and exercise. And so it is so cool to be able to see that. And that's why I mentioned that thing about turning back people's biological age. When you see what the gaps are, and some of this you even involve genetic test, epigenetic testing, it gets really involved to see where those issues are. When you implement the right system for them, it's just amazing. And then I think that's what translates back to the business. Because if your leaders are going out to take a nap, how effective are they compared to if they've got more energy than they ever have? Well, then is the business going to grow better? And absolutely. So then translate that to the business side. Like I mentioned before, strategy, people, operations, acceleration. That's when you can really put the business into a place where it can transform as well. A case where working with a firm that was having trouble paying their bills, and then went in and just found out where the gaps were and put the system in place, really vision, accountability, and ownership of task. And they ended up tripling revenue in within a year. So yeah, there are pretty powerful things that could come when you actually implement the system.
Yeah, awesome. I want to delve just a little bit deeper on this
Yeah.
because you talked about reducing your biological age about 7.5 years, and you rank in the top 0.1% globally for slowest pace of aging, right? And I think a lot of people out there, it's becoming bigger. Like I'm seeing it here in Australia, and I know like people like Gary Brecka, talk about a
Mhm.
lot of the health side a lot that you've obviously spoken alongside. And I think longevity, health, and I think with AI, with the technology, it's just going to be getting easier and better over the coming years. So
Right.
what can you share are some simple tips for people that, you mentioned a little bit about the tests and stuff, but how we can slow down our aging and get to a point where, we're really feeling younger, I guess, than what our technical age is.
Sure. Yeah, and I will say those tests will help you identify because you'll be able to see exactly what that gap is. But I think to your question and the listeners who might not have taken it, to look and see what the things are. Like, let's, gosh, there's so many we could go down, but if let's take those five that I just mentioned: mindset, sleep, nutrition, exercise, supplements. We work with so many entrepreneurs and executives, and they say, "Oh, I don't have any stress. I'm fine. I deal with stress." But then you look at the numbers, like what is your Aura ring saying, or what is your blood test saying? And it's remarkable how stressed they are. And it's things like the cortisol to testosterone ratio, something very simple. And you say, how do we get the cortisol down? Well, it's not natural for executives to say, I actually need to take a break and do some deep breaths. Or do I need to wake up in the morning and do a morning routine to be able to set my intentions for the day? Maybe a cold shower in the morning, maybe a warm shower at night before they go to bed, because then the body temperature is going to go down and they're going to get to sleep better. And then you have that quiet environment and just all the things about improving each of these aspects. Nutrition, I think, is pretty obvious where people, if they, we don't like to say cut things out, but look for empowering alternatives. So obviously people know, like if they're eating a ton of sugars or seed oils or even a lot of those grains of pastries and pastas and all that kind of stuff, yeah, it'd be great if you give it all up, but at least if you switched it for an empowering alternative, something that you could enjoy that just wasn't loaded with all that junk, then that's going to make a huge difference. And then people say they don't have time for exercise. Well, it's just like scheduling a meeting. That can be your most important meeting, and it doesn't have to be a lot. 20 minutes, three times a week. You got time for that. So, maybe I went off on a bit too long of a tangent there, but that's the idea. It's again all about intentionality, these simple things that people can do. And then when you do them, not just for a week or a month, but really, it's all about establishing the habits and routines that you can do for life. And when you do things not just day after day, month after month, but year after year, that's when you're going to see these true massive differences. And that's when people are really, you can turn back biological age pretty quickly by doing some of the quick stuff, but then over time, it'll really go back when they implement the habits over time.
Yeah, nice. I love that you talk about habits there because that's all it is. And, there's great
Mhm.
books like Atomic Habits and stuff out there that just say,
Yeah.
start small, right? Like, you want to read a book, read a page, that doesn't have to be hard. Like go for a walk for 2 minutes if that's going to be a fitness step. Like it doesn't have to be a massive workout for an hour, right? To start.
Right.
And
Hmm.
I think that's what people need to realize. And And then yeah, the nutrition side, it's just making better choices. Like, you can still have certain things that might be nice to taste, but maybe they're not as sugary. Maybe they're more natural sugars, that you take. You have alternatives that still give you that nice, like I know that I find like healthy, for example, like healthy ice creams that use natural sugars or something like this, right? Like occasionally, not that I eat, heaps of them every day, ideally, but it's,
Sure.
it's what can you find that's alternative that's going to keep you more in a healthy state. I think in Australia, we're actually very lucky here that we have a very healthy food element culture when you go out, what you can
Hmm.
buy. Whereas I think, I don't know about you in where you are in Florida, maybe it's easier, but when I find in the US, there's a lot more bigger meals, a lot more like processed foods and things like this. So it's about, I guess, being intentional when you're shopping, right? And everything like that of finding those places, yeah, and things to eat.
You are so right in saying being intentional. And it is a very big issue here because when we travel overseas, I can eat pretty much anything. But here in the US, it's just what has been done in the food supply. So many things are overprocessed. And even you get down to the grains and what has happened to the like why bread and the pastas here, they've stripped out the good part of the grain, they put in the fillers, they say things like enriched and fortified. And basically it's being fortified with junk that we don't need. So like if I'm ever going to eat pasta, which I don't much anymore, just because I mean when you're well, you ask about performance, and when I cut that out, I realized my performance got better. But now if I'm eating the stuff that's really fortified and enriched here in America, it just doesn't work for me. But get something imported, like imported Italian pasta, it's great. I can still eat that. So yeah, that's what you're right on and saying Australia's done it right with their food, and hopefully America's coming along and realizing that they could do it better, and we might be improving. But it is all about reading the labels and being intentional.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. So everyone, go out there, make it happen. And I think just from my side on the exercise side, like I like sport for me because it
Hmm.
doesn't feel like I'm going to the gym and doing stuff. Now, people love gym, that's great as well, right? But it's like find something that you enjoy they're doing that gives you some fitness and everything exercise and stuff that's in your I think that's the simple way that I would say it for people as well.
Well
So
said.
yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. So great. We've gone through that step in the framework. So do you want to
Yeah.
share it with the next one? Yeah.
Keep rolling. Third is ignite. And this is really when you are using that system. And I alluded to it before, the whole idea about accountability for lasting results. Because at this point, you've got the system installed, but you have to use it. And willpower will only take us so far. So that's the idea of using systems, whether this be an accountability partner or using something where you've got your team or you're reporting to someone. It's the whole idea of why group exercise work or having a coach works or all that type of stuff of being able to make sure that it's not just a one-time setup, but you're going to do this for life because that's really where the results come, right?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Where us humans, we can't be accountable to ourselves a lot of the time, right? It takes a lot of
Yeah.
willpower to do that. But as soon as you're accountable to somebody else, whether it's someone in your team, a coach, even having your family around, right? Like, that's an
Mhm.
accountability element of going, well, I need to do this for my family, for somebody else. It's not just for myself. It's amazing what happens, right? With what you achieve from there.
It certainly is. And then four and five kind of go together because we always talk about those core three, but then it leads to integrate and impact. Because once you've got that, you've gotten to the point where things are rolling, you've got the system, you've got accountability, and then you integrate it so you live fully in all aspects of life. Because this is where people will talk about the concept of work-life balance a lot, and you've got to keep those intact. But some people have said that I think it was Jeff Bezos who said work-life balance is a debilitating term, and it's more about the integration. How can you integrate your life? And that's the idea of what we talked about before with the 8 F's of the faith, family, friends, finance, fitness, fulfillment, freedom, fun. And the idea of when you're living fully in all aspects of life, that's when you're integrating a lot of these pieces of the puzzle into it so you can have your personal growth to be the best that you can be. And I love growth, and that is what it's all about. Like John Maxwell says, we don't want to just go through life, we want to grow through life. But I would take it a step further, and that leads to the fifth step here, that is impact. And that would be that we don't just grow. There's something beyond our personal growth, but let's look beyond that and think, how can we then contribute to others, make an impact in others' life? And so that is what the fifth step impact is all about, to almost get into that concept of stewardship, taking our blessings, multiplying them to be able to impact others so we can lead by example. And it's the idea of going kind of beyond success to significance or beyond growth to that contribution. So that's kind of how it wraps up when we look at the whole five there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I think it's extremely powerful. And I think the impact part is really, yeah, where you start to do more than just what you're here for. And I think it's powerful because I know I've got a child as well. And I think, it sort of starts there, right? When you've got young
Yeah,
children, you're like, wow, how can I like pass on these learnings and create an amazing life for them? And then obviously, for your team or your businesses and everything like that is how can you impact people in there? Because I know when you go outside of that, like, and help, someone in my team, it's like they're so grateful as well, right? When you impact them in different ways and they didn't expect, and there's a lot more loyalty and just connection, right? That comes from that.
exactly. And when you said that, it reminded me of one of the clients we worked with, a great guy, super successful in business, and originally came to us actually for the health and performance side, looking about the biological age test. And, it didn't open up that much at the beginning. But then when we got into the whole 8F side and all the things about impact and legacy, he opened up about it. And he said he essentially took some time off from our meetings. He checked himself into AA for an alcohol problem. And then when he came back, he shared that he was largely turning to alcohol to cover up a void where he felt like there was a lack of purpose in his life beyond his work. And so we started really working through that personal compass and one of the questions is, what do you want to be remembered for? And what is your legacy? And what's it going to be like in 100 years? And he made a dramatic transformation in his life, intentionally focusing on his family, making sure he's going back and coaching his son's baseball team. I mean, just the little things like that. But just to your point of what you said, that is what you can impact anyone around you. So that is really what it does come back to. And it can be such a powerful thing when you do it right.
Yeah, awesome. I love that story. And it takes amazing people like yourself, right? And this is the power of, coaches, mentors, consultants, advisors, people that we work with, because when you're in the problem, it's hard to see the solution, right? The external
Mhm.
person is there to do that. So, I guess personally, how do you think that, yeah, people, coach, mentors, advisors, these types of people has helped you in your life generally and what they've done? Yeah.
Tremendously. I love the idea of it. And I typically have like two or three coaches, depending on where they are. Like I still have the fitness side, there's been business side, whatever, all the different parts of the puzzle. But it kind of goes back to the whole concept of people are already an expert in a certain area. And why go through years and years and years of trying to learn it for yourself when there's somebody that has already done it and you can model the process? And I think it probably started back when what I mentioned at the beginning of this call, like 2008 real estate crash. I'm leaving my position in that industry, and what am I going to do? I've got young boys, young sons. How are we going to support them? But instead of panicking or anything, that's when you actually took a step back and looked into mentors and coaches and what are they doing and how are the most successful people in the world operating? What systems are they putting into place? And who can we kind of align with to be that coach and mentor to be able to help us through the journey? And that is kind of what set into motion all the rest of what we're doing. So yeah, throughout my life, I've always kept up the idea of, all right, who can I learn from? How you take it to the next step? So absolutely so important. All about it's how you grow.
Yeah, love, I completely agree. They've definitely been, massive growth, cut time down. And I think, if anyone wants to learn, you mentioned the book at the start, which I love. I tell a lot of my clients about who, not how, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's a very powerful book because that could be coach mentors, it could be other people. It's like, yeah, who can help me in what I do just to get there fast. I think it's a mindset because we're taught differently through the standard school system, right? So
Exactly.
how can we change that there? And yeah, awesome. That's very, very powerful. I loved all those five. So for everyone, it's identify, implement, ignite, integrate, and impact. I like that it's all eyes, very
There you
simple.
go.
And yeah, they all link together. And I think that's what it is. It's the piece of the puzzle and someone to like yourselves to guide you through and yeah, make that happen. So awesome.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the leader in the business, right? And normally people think it's their baby or they want to, get involved too much, and it can be like a bit of a bottleneck, right? Of what happens in businesses a lot of the time that stifles
Right.
growth. So how do what you do with your assessments and protocols unlock, I guess, the leader and the company for growth.
I think one of the best ways to tell that is the story of what we're doing right now. And it is a fabulous company. This guy, I called him like Superman because he had everything in his head. He's a contractor, residential contractor. They basically install pools for very high-end luxury pool design, you could call it, and grew it from like zero to over $20 million all by himself, everything in his head. But he's getting to the point where he wants to be able to pass that on to his son and kind of step back out of the business. And so you think, okay, how are we going to do this when everything is in his head? And that's why I love being able to have a very clear system like this using the extraordinary execution system, but with AI. So when you think of the whole process of, okay, what is the ideal future vision, not just for you and your life, but for your company and your son and all of your future employees who are going to be involved in this business? Where are the gaps to where you are right now? And then start looking at the tools and features and ways to start automating and saving time. So he doesn't like writing things down. So we're basically building this AI tool that is almost like he can speak into his phone, it will capture it to be able to create almost an AI knowledge base of everything that he's been doing, and then take that and turn it into real systems that the business can use. Like, how are all of the estimates done? Well, that can be turned into a system that can make quotes much faster. How is the communication done to the builders, to the homeowners during the process? Again, all of that can be automated. How, or, I could go down a list of all the things. You get the idea. That's sort of the process of going back to that step one, identify what the gaps are, find the system that can put them in, and then use AI to accelerate all of it to be able to make it go forward. So that's a good example of, I think, looking at the leader and thinking, okay, they've done incredibly well. Yet to be able to get to their future goal, they've gotten to the point where systems and the AI automations can really help them get that much further.
Yeah, definitely. And I think AI is a big topic now, right? And I'd love
Hmm.
to delve a bit deeper. I've, been delving a lot into AI and, getting a lot of my clients onto it. And it's
Sure.
funny how it's evolved from like ChatGPT to now Claude as the main LLM, like there's like people are
Exactly.
still on
I made
ChatGPT.
that
It's like,
transition myself.
yeah. And it's like a lot of people I'm like, that's old news now. You got to move on because of how it moves so fast. But I think a lot
Yeah.
of people just think, oh, I just go to the LLM like Claude and I just type stuff in and it gives me stuff. But there's so much more, right, that
Right.
AI can do. So do you want to share? You mentioned knowledge base there, which I think is a really key
Hmm.
one. But do you want to maybe share a
Hmm.
little about what's possible and maybe what people should think about as some initial steps, on looking at AI within their businesses?
Certainly. Yeah, I think the place to start is really looking at it agentically, meaning what can be done for you, not just typing in and getting an answer back, but something that could be really done as an autonomous employee, because that's what I look at as being the most important here, where it is, and I'm constantly blown away by the things that can be done by it. And I guess you could say I have a lot of the ideas. I don't know how to code a lot of it myself, which thank goodness we've got a good team of developers to be able to take care and do that kind of thing. But it's almost like what I love so much is having these conversations with somebody to find out, and this is to answer your question about what would somebody do. Just think about what is taking your time. What is something that you spend a lot of time on? Like I mentioned that quote thing before. He was spending multiple hours per day sending quotes out to the different people that might be interested in it. Well, all of that can be automated. And then when that's automated, well, where are you going to spend your time? It's going to be on something much higher value and be able to bring in much more money. So it could go into a very long answer here, but I think the short version is if there are things that you feel like you're doing that you are spending too much time on that could be automated, well, then they probably could. And just, you don't have to figure it out on your own. Let's go back to who, not how. Talk to someone that knows how to do it or has done it for others, and then they can code it into a system. At least just figure out what it is, if it's something that would work for you. I mean, sure, certainly if you're the type, play, tinker, do it yourself. Like we're starting our own app based on frameworks, and I wanted to at least show what it looked like. So I started vibe coding a little app in Lovable, but I know I'm not the one to be able to take it to the finish line. So I wanted to create it because I had the vision, but now we're trading it off to our developer who's going to actually make it happen and so we can launch it to the world. So that's what I mean by have that vision. Sure, you can start it, but just going through the process of thinking, what do I wish we could have? What do I wish we could automate? And then what will you be able to do with your time when it's freed up?
Yeah, I love it. It's so true, and I think the automation part is probably the easiest thing for people to think about. It's going if you have
Hmm.
a process, a bit like an old school year in marketing, right? You go to in the CRM and you have like a workflow, right? It's like, oh, when someone fills in the form on the website, you send an email, you send an SMS. It's like an automated thing. But now it's like
Right.
you could do it with anything almost, right? In this automation step, you're not just
You can.
with one
And
program.
people talk so much about, do you need content created? Do you need more digital ads? Do you need the ads analyzed? Do you need a scoreboard? Like, what are all these things that people are looking for? And that's going to be a lot of it. And if you go down that path, but then it becomes, well, or their automations in the business or their knowledge bases, like the one I shared before. So a lot of different routes to go down there. But yeah, it's just an amazing world. And if people take advantage of it, then there's going to be that much more ahead.
Definitely. And just a little 2 cents tip for everybody, right? Get into Claude, and Claude has some amazing applications on the automation side like Cowork. There's
Yeah.
other ones out there like NA10 and Make and things like that, but Claude does make it easy. And then on the vibe coding side, what Patrick was talking about is Lovable is a really great one. That is simple, just to like create something very quickly. But then if you want to create something a little bit better, obviously you can get developers. But Claude Code is actually quite good at helping you vibe code in a better way. But eventually, if you're building something big, you will definitely need
Yeah.
some help and someone to confirm everything on that side. And I was actually talking about this with one of my clients where we're building something. And I think this is where people need to have the vision, right? And this is the benefits of having somebody externally like us, because he said, "Oh, I'm having these problems in our systems," and I said, "Well, why don't we create something new in Claude Code?" And he's like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And then we started doing it, and I said, "Imagine now what we're creating, right? We're creating this system that's very unique to his business." And I said, "Well, let's think about it at the next level. What if you then sell this to the industry
Mm.
after, right? Because like
Mhm.
this is thinking the big vision ahead, and sometimes." You need somebody else to tell you, going, "Hey, there's actually a bigger thing that you can do here, make you think bigger." And you go, "Wow, I didn't actually think that that was possible. Let's work together and do it." And I'm sure you guys do that a lot, with your clients as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it goes back to the idea of have a coach or mentor that help somebody think bigger than they were. But you're exactly right. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because yes, while I vibe coded in Lovable just to do something very quick, when I turned it to our developer, he is actually using Claude Code to finish it and make it something that can go to the world. So well said. Thank you.
Yeah, you definitely, mate. It's good, and these are things people can have. I tell people have a play with it, right? Because in the end, you want to come there, but at the same time,
Yeah,
you want to do it quicker. Get people involved that can help you, right? Depending on what you want to do, and the experts that are going to get you there, because it's moving so fast. Like you don't want to spend 2, 3 years creating something when it's moving so fast. You want to take months basically now, and that's how quickly we can do something out there, like creation. So speed to market, I think, is really important in whatever you're doing now. Yeah, awesome.
exactly. Cool.
So I guess you shared so much gold with us here today, Patrick, and it's been a very, very powerful episode. I guess as we're starting to wrap up, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders that watching and listening today?
Oh, I see a great question. So, I mean, first thing that comes to mind is just going back to kind of step one, identifying where you are. But let's take that a step further and say, really look at all aspects of life. Identify, is there something in your business that you would like to improve? Is there something in your personal life? And take it out to, like, let's say, we're having a conversation, but you're 80, 90, 100 years old, whatever it may be. And you want to be able to say, your life is perfect. I'm not saying everything has been perfect. There's been ups, there's been downs, all that kind of stuff. But for you to say that, what actually has to be in place? There are going to be some core things that are super important to you. That's that ideal vision. And are you doing the things each and every day to make sure that vision is happening? And if it's not, then I would say, well, now it's time to implement it and start doing what we call the 20-mile march. I won't get into that whole story, but it's from a Jim Collins book about people who march 20 miles day after day. And so that's the idea. When you have your habits and you do them day after day, month after month, year after year, well, that's when you're going to be able to hit that ideal vision of what will make your life perfect so that you will be able to make the impact you're called to make.
Yeah, love it. Awesome, guys. Definitely focus on all of that. Completely agree with Patrick there. And yeah, we connected through our networks. I talked about your awesome journey with various marketing and business roles and growth roles, and now being the founder of Unite Five. Amazing, awesome guy and so knowledgeable. And I love that you are encompassing a lot of elements here, right? It's not just the business side. The
Mhm.
personal side is mixed in, and you've got a great framework of really understanding where you're at and how you move forward and how you make sure that's consistent and growing and also making an impact, over time. So I think you've created something really unique. I love it, and I'd love to delve more deeper. And I recommend everybody to look into it as well, right? Because I think it's a great way to live life and holistically, yeah, be in a great space in whatever you do. And then hopefully you can maybe go for a year around the world like you did or something like that, whatever interests, our listeners here, that you're also enjoying life throughout the journey, right? I think that's the important thing. So I think you've created something really amazing there. I'm sure you continue to guide, executives, leadership teams, and organizations to ignite performance, accelerate growth, and thrive as well. So I'm very grateful we connected and look forward to partnering with you. So Patrick, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, Ethan, because yeah, I mean, what you do is amazing. I've said it too, and being able to grow and help people is really what it's all about. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep up the great work. And I will say to answer your question as far as where people can find me, yeah, the company is Ignite 5. That is the number 5, not spelled out. So ignite5.com. They can go there and find anything. And a lot of the stuff that I talked about, the resources are free. There's a free diagnostic, and they're welcome to jump in and just see where they are. That's step one, identify. And so, start off the process there, but feel free to reach out individually as well. I'm on LinkedIn. If you look up Patrick O'Donnell, Ignite 5, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, I will be there and happy to respond, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, love to be in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Patrick. Great to have you on, and great that you had an enjoyable time. And definitely, everyone, check out that. Go to the website ignite5.com. Get connect with Patrick on LinkedIn there as well, and yeah, take yourself to the next level and of encompassing all these 5 elements. So, mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.